For 5 years, I had given everything to this company, late nights, skip vacations, and relentless hard work, all leading up to this moment. My promotion party. The room was decorated with balloons and banners, and my coworkers cheered as I walked in. My heart pounded with excitement. Finally, my hard work was paying off. My boss stood in the center, raising a glass. "We're here to celebrate an incredible achievement," he said, smiling at me. I held my breath, waiting for the words I had dreamed of hearing. Then my world shattered. "I'm thrilled to announce that the promotion goes to our newest team member, Jake." The room erupted in applause. My ears rang. My face burned. Jake, the guy who had only been here for 6 months? I had trained him myself. I forced a smile, clapping along with everyone else. My stomach twisted, but I refused to let anyone see my pain. "Not here. Not now." Jake beamed, shaking hands and patting me on the back. "Couldn't have done it without you, buddy," he said, laughing. I nodded, my fingers tightening around my glass. This wasn't over. That night, long after the party ended, I sat alone in my office, staring blankly at my computer screen. How did this happen? I had given years of dedication to this company, yet Jake, who had barely settled into his chair, had walked away with my promotion. I scrolled through my emails, searching for any sign that I had overlooked something. Had I made a mistake? Missed a deadline? Then, voices outside the break room caught my attention. Jake's uncle really came through for him. I froze. "Yeah, must be nice to have family in high places." Another voice chuckled. "He wasn't even the best candidate, but you know how things work." My blood ran cold. Nepotism. It wasn't about performance. It was about connections. I clenched my fists. All those nights I spent working late, the sacrifices I made, it had all been worthless against a powerful last name. But if they thought I would just accept this, they were wrong. That I spent the next few weeks playing my role perfectly, acting like the same dedicated, loyal employee while secretly gathering proof. First, I pulled up old emails from our internal system. I found messages between my boss and Jake's uncle, a high-ranking executive, discussing Jake's promotion months before the position was even announced. Then, I compared our performance reports. Mine were flawless, high ratings, completed projects, leadership contributions. Jake's, sloppy work, multiple complaints, missed deadlines. And the final piece, a hidden internal memo where my boss admitted, "Jake isn't qualified, but we have to keep his uncle happy." I had everything I needed. Instead of going straight to HR, I took a smarter approach. I forwarded the evidence anonymously to the company's board of directors. Then, I sent copies to key employees, the ones who despised office politics. The whispers started almost immediately. The office buzzed with rumors. Managers exchanged nervous glances. Then, an email hit everyone's inbox. Mandatory company-wide meetings scheduled for Monday. Attendance required. My boss looked pale. Jake stopped joking around. I leaned back in my chair. It was time for the truth to come out. Monday morning, the tension in the office was thick enough to cut with a knife. Everyone gathered in the conference room, murmuring about the anonymous emails. My boss sat at the head of the table, shifting uncomfortably. Jake sat beside him, his usual smugness replaced with uneasy silence. Then, the door opened. The CEO himself walked in. The room fell silent. This was bigger than anyone had expected. He placed a stack of papers on the table and looked around the room. "We have received concerning evidence regarding unethical promotions," he announced. "This company values fairness, and what I'm seeing here is unacceptable." He picked up one of the documents, the internal memo where my boss admitted Jake was unqualified. My boss paled. Jake sank into his chair. The CEO's gaze hardened. "We will not tolerate favoritism in this company. Effective immediately, changes will be made." I held my breath. Then the CEO turned to me. "You were the rightful choice for this promotion. We are correcting that mistake today." My heart pounded. I had won, but the consequences didn't stop there. My boss was demoted, and Jake, humiliated beyond repair, resigned on the spot. The room was silent, except for the CEO's final words. "To those who think they can cheat the system, let this be a lesson." I met Jake's eyes as he walked out. I had worked for this. I had earned this. And now, justice had been served. After the meeting, the office was never the same. My boss packed up his things, his power stripped away. Jake avoided eye contact as he walked past me for the last time, his resignation letter clutched in his trembling hand. And me. I sat at my new desk, the nameplate reading, "Senior Manager, rightful promotion earned." Coworkers stopped by to congratulate me, not just because I won, but because I had fought for what was right. The best part? The respect. Not just from my colleagues, but from myself. I had stood up against unfairness, nepotism, and deceit, and I had won without lowering myself to their level. That night I celebrated. But this time, the party wasn't a cover-up for my disappointment. It was a real celebration. One I truly deserved. The moment the party ended, I knew I couldn't just sit back and accept what had happened. My so-called promotion party had turned into an event where I was sidelined, forced to watch as my boss handed my long-awaited position to someone who had barely been at the company for a few months. I had smiled, I had clapped, but inside, something had shifted. I spent the weekend in deep thought, replaying the past few months in my mind. All the late nights, the overtime, the sacrifices. I had given everything to this company. And yet, when the time came for recognition, I was overlooked like I didn't matter. Come Monday, I walked into the office with a new mindset. If they wouldn't give me what I deserved, I would take control of my own future. But before I could act, an unexpected opportunity came my way. "Hey," my coworker Emma whispered as we walked toward the break room. "I heard something that might interest you." I raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" She glanced around and lowered her voice. "I overheard a meeting last Friday. Apparently, the boss didn't promote you because of some kind of agreement with the higher-ups. They wanted someone new for the role, someone they could mold." My heart clenched at her words. So it was never about my work ethic? Emma shook her head. "It was politics." A bitter laugh escaped me. Of course it was politics. It always was. That night, instead of wallowing in disappointment, I made a decision. If this company wouldn't recognize me, I'd find one that would. And if they thought I was just going to accept being cast aside, they were wrong. This was only the beginning. I walked into the office the next morning with a new resolve. My emotions were still raw, but my mind was clear. I wasn't going to let them push me aside without a fight. However, I wasn't about to make a scene. No, I had a much better plan. Instead of sulking, I did what I always did. I worked. But this time, I paid close attention to everything. I observed my newly promoted coworker struggle with tasks I could complete in minutes. I watched as my boss stepped in to assist, covering up their mistakes instead of acknowledging the fact that I had been the more qualified choice all along. At lunch, Emma joined me again. "You're being really quiet about all this," she noted. "Are you okay?" I gave her a small smile. "Oh, I'm fine." "Really?" She raised an eyebrow. "Because I expected you to explode by now." I chuckled. "No need. They're going to realize their mistakes soon enough." And I meant it. While my coworker was struggling in the new role, I made sure I was excelling in mine. Every report, every project, every client interaction, I put in extra effort, ensuring that my contributions were impossible to ignore. If my boss had wanted someone they could mold, they were about to find out that their choice came with major consequences. A week passed, and small cracks were already beginning to show. The workload was too much for my coworker. Clients were growing frustrated. Mistakes were being made, and deadlines were missed. Then, one afternoon, my boss called me into his office. "How are things going?" he asked casually. I knew what he was really asking. "Great," I said with a polite smile, "though I have noticed that some of our projects are falling behind." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Yes, I've noticed that too." I waited, letting the silence stretch between us. He was hesitant to admit the truth, but I could see it in his eyes. He was regretting his decision. But I wasn't going to give him an easy way out. So I stood up. "If there's anything I can do to help, just let me know." I walked out of his office, leaving him with his thoughts. Because I knew that soon, he would have no choice but to come to me for a real solution. And when he did, it would be on my terms. A week after my conversation with the boss, things at the office had gone from bad to worse. The newly promoted coworker was drowning under pressure. Important deals were falling apart, clients were growing impatient, and the team was silently frustrated. Everyone knew that the wrong person had been given the role, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Emma leaned against my desk one morning. "Did you hear? The regional manager is coming in next week. Apparently, the numbers aren't looking good." I smirked. "Let me guess, our department is at the top of the list?" She nodded. "They're trying to fix things before it gets worse, but honestly, it's already bad." I could feel it too. The tension in the office was thick, and my boss was growing more and more anxious. He hadn't approached me directly yet, but I could see him hesitating whenever he passed my desk. Then, during a team meeting, the inevitable happened. "So," my boss said, forcing a smile, "we need to tighten up operations before the regional manager arrives. I want everyone to work together to make sure we meet our targets." My coworker, the one who had been promoted over me, was visibly stressed. They knew they were failing, and I almost felt bad for them. Almost. Then my boss turned to me. Would you be able to assist with a few key projects? I know you've handled similar work before. There it was, the opening I had been waiting for. I tilted my head, pretending to think. Well, I have my own workload to manage. But I suppose I could help, under the right conditions. He blinked, caught off guard. Conditions? I kept my expression calm. If I'm going to take on extra work, I want it recognized. I won't be doing someone else's job for free. Silence fell over the room. My boss looked uncomfortable. He had expected me to jump at the chance to prove myself, but I wasn't about to let them use me again. I'll think about it, he finally said. I nodded, hiding my smile. Take your time. Because I knew that the longer they waited, the worse things would get. And when they finally came back with a real offer, it would be on my terms. The next few days were a spectacle. My newly promoted coworker was on the verge of a breakdown, scrambling to fix mistakes that were piling up faster than they could handle. Clients were furious. The team was exhausted. And my boss, he was a nervous wreck. Emma nudged me at lunch. They need you and they know it. The question is, what are you going to do? I took a sip of my coffee, enjoying the moment. I'll wait. And I did. I watched as the office spiraled into chaos. Reports were late. Emails went unanswered. The regional manager was arriving in 2 days, and the department was a mess. Then, just as I expected, my boss finally called me into his office. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Listen, he started, rubbing his temples. I know things haven't been ideal, but we need to fix this before the regional manager arrives. I sat back in my chair, keeping my face neutral. I see. He exhaled, clearly uncomfortable. You're the only one who can turn this around. If you take over the major projects and get everything in order, I promise we'll have a serious conversation about your future here. There it was. Desperation. I tilted my head. A promise? Like the one I got before my promotion was handed to someone else. He flinched. This is different. No, I said, leaning forward. It's exactly the same. Silence. I let it stretch, watching the realization dawn on him. He needed me, but I didn't need them. I'm willing to help, I finally said. But under my conditions. I want a new title, a salary increase, and control over my projects. His jaw clenched. That's a lot. I smiled. So is what you're asking me to do. He hesitated, then nodded. I'll talk to upper management. I stood up. You do that. Let me know when it's official. Then I walked out, leaving him with no choice but to meet my demands. Because now, I was the one in control. The day before the regional manager's visit, my boss called me back into his office. This time, he looked defeated, but resigned. We've approved your conditions, he said reluctantly. You'll receive an official title change, a salary adjustment, and full control over your projects. I didn't let my excitement show. I simply nodded. Good. I'll get to work. And I did. With my new authority, I immediately stepped in to clean up the mess my coworker had made. I restructured failing projects, reassigned tasks, and reconnected with frustrated clients. The team, relieved to finally have competent leadership, quickly followed my direction. By the time the regional manager arrived, the department was back on track. During the evaluation meeting, he praised the turnaround. I have to say, I was concerned, he admitted, but I'm impressed by how well you handled everything. My boss forced a smile. Yes, we worked hard as a team, but the regional manager shook his head. Actually, I heard that one person was responsible for fixing this mess. He turned to me. Great work. We need more leaders like you in this company. I glanced at my boss, who looked like he had swallowed something bitter. Thank you, I said with a polite smile. Later, Emma caught up with me. You did it, she grinned. You finally got what you deserved. I nodded, and they learned an important lesson. Never overlook the right person for the job. My boss avoided me for weeks after that. As for my coworker, they quietly transferred to another department, unable to keep up with the expectations of their undeserved promotion. And me, I thrived, because when they tried to push me aside, they didn't realize one thing. I was never going to let them win. I had proven my worth. And this time, I claim my victory. The end.